And welcome, as there is no open this evening because we have so much to get to. Welcome back to the Push to Pass podcast. I am Derik Vance, and joining me, as always, as you see over on that side, is Joshua Roberts. And Josh, I know we have a lot to get to, so let's get into it. I know I got lucky, I have to say, Josh, that we were able to get Don Cusick of Don Cusick Motorsports on. Don, I know it's been a little bit since we've talked last. A lot's gone on, but it sounds like you along with your partners over at Dreyer Weinbolt Racing had a huge announcement today. Do you want to fill the audience in on what that was?
Yeah, sure. So today we announced a partnership with Polka Dot as our primary sponsor for the number 24. That's going to be driven by Connor Daly, and we're obviously thrilled to have them on board. They have a like philosophy in the internet world that we do in the racing world, and that's making things more accessible to the people. So good partnership there.
Yeah, Don, you have to be excited. I know you were able with Dreyer Rembolt last year to get Stefan Wilson into the 500. I know he's still recovering from his injuries. So I know you got to be excited not only to get another car or attempt to get another car in the 500 this year, but bringing on Connor Daly as well.
No, it's great. I mean, Connor, iconic American racer, great guy, loved by the fans. Good news this year is we're also going to be on Ryan Hunter race cars. So Cusick Motorsports will be on both the DRR cars this year. So we've really got two cars in the show, and that'll be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't look definitely look forward to seeing you out there at the track, and as we did last year, putting our full support behind you and everyone else that's involved to get not both get both of those cars rather into the 500. You want to talk a little bit about how this deal came about?
Yeah, sure, sure. We're obviously still pro Stefan, and we're going to be looking for a place for him for 2025. But with his injuries and all the stuff that went on, he was just uncertain, I think, as to whether he's going to be ready to drive or he wasn't. As it turns out, he was, and unfortunately, it was too late to do anything about it this year. But that aside. Yeah, so we had a really good year. I thought last year with Dennis, the team just kind of gelled together. Anders and my guys, and Dennis and Brett and his guys. It was just a good fit. So so Dennis called me. I wasn't too much after the 500 and asked if we'd be interested to come back, and I said, yeah, absolutely. I think everybody knows we're kind of looking for a longer term deal and maybe even a full time deal, and a lot of chatter about that. What with the charter discussions and everything. So anyway, uh, Dennis and I kind of joke about it. We kind of had our first date last year, and now we moved to the second phase, and if all goes well, maybe we'll get married and do the whole thing. So we'll see. But I love working with those guys, and we're excited to do it again for sure.
Yeah, definitely love seeing you out at IMS. The motorsports passion runs deep into your blood. I know it does, and the 500 and going out there, Don, I have to say is not as special until I can see you out there doing what you enjoy most, and that is race cars.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. You know what? Interacting with the fans and getting to know all you guys over the course of I can't believe it's been 4 years now. Um, that's really been the reward for me. And I always put it out there, and I'd love to do it on your podcast as well. And that's just to welcome any fan that wants to come by the garage, hang out. If the situation permits, we'll get you in the garage, show you the car up close. Maybe meet the drivers if they're around. It's fluid there, and you never really know. But as you know well, I'm always standing behind the ropes there, and if there's an opportunity, I welcome everybody to come in and see what we're doing. Giving access to the fans is what it's all about for us, and we want to continue to do that for sure.
Yeah, Don, and before I let Josh ask you a question or two, just for everyone, Don is not, he's not blowing smoke up your backside. We both had the opportunity and pleasure to meet him last year, and I think Josh will agree with me. Not only was Don cordial to us and everyone else he ran into out there, but his wife was just as cordial, and obviously Don wouldn't say this, but that's his better half, don't you think?
Unquestionably. No question about it. She's as big a fan as I am, so she loves it as much as I do. And last year we kind of experimented with staying in a motorhome on the track, a few nights, and in a hotel a few nights. I didn't know how she was going to take to it, and she's like, "We're full on staying in the motorhome." She wants to be there all 2 weeks. We're going to come in on the 12th and stay through the 27th. So that sure makes it easier on me, I can tell you that.
Yeah, I bet it does. Josh, do you have anything for Don? Last couple minutes we have with him.
Yeah, Don, thanks again for coming on. And big news today that was released. Mine's not so much about the Dreyer Reinbold collab you have going on. Is how was the Thermal Club experience? I know that's kind of like your home track, and you guys are you and your lovely wife are members of it. What was that like?
From a personal standpoint, from my level, it was awesome. I mean, we loved it. Having that kind of access, even though we get it at the 500, it was really fun to share it with the fans. And there was quite a few people that I've gotten to know through social media. A lot of the elite IndyCar guys were out there, and several others. And I think it was a controversial thing, and I think I feel bad that some people didn't think the racing was all that great. For me, anytime the cars are on the track, it's great. But from a fan interaction standpoint, being able to take people way inside the operation, that was really cool. That's the part I enjoyed the most. I didn't really get to see a ton of the racing. I think I saw the final heat. I watched it from Tim Rogers' balcony, but the rest of the time I was literally taking people around in my golf cart and showing them things and giving them experiences that, you know, that they paid for, but they probably wouldn't get anywhere else just because of the circumstance of there only being, a couple thousand people there. So I personally loved it. And, I've defended it on social media to some of the haters, but like I said, for me, anytime I can interact with the fans and anytime there's really cool race cars on a racetrack, I'm all about that.
Yeah, that was it was an interesting race to say the least. It was a good payout for Polo. Any insight? Are they talking about bringing it back next year, or is this a one and done type of thing? Do you know?
No, you know what? I think the Thermal Club would love to have IndyCar back. And my sense of it is that IndyCar would like to come back. I think the drivers and the teams loved it. They loved the kind of unique situation and the kind of five-star high-end treatment that the Thermal Club provides. I do think we need to make more access for the fans, and they probably have to revamp what they do in terms of on track. If they're not going to be a points race, then maybe it's a practice type of situation or something different. I'm all for trying things and going out of the box and all that. I was sad that the fans kind of took it the wrong way, and many of them thought it was just the rich guys' playground, and it really wasn't at all. Not at all. In fact, a lot of the members were absolutely blown away. And I don't know if you know, but they did a drawing and they embedded some of the members with the IndyCar teams. They did it for charity, and I can tell you that there was a few people out there that were members that were naysayers and said, "Oh, we really don't want this here. We really don't like it." And by the time they were done, they were just blown away. They are like full on, how do we sign up for this? And I think a lot of people don't realize, but we had 20 people that are thermal members sponsor our car last year. paid real money to have a sticker on the side of the car. And so, that makes the wheels turn. And I think there's going to be a lot of that happening as a result of what happened at Thermal. So it's a good thing. People that didn't really appreciate what IndyCar was got a whole different view of it, and I think are going to become involved.
Well, that's good to hear because I mean I always want to see the see NTT and IndyCar growing. So once again, congratulations on your big announcement today with Dreyer Reinbold, and we're looking forward to seeing you and your whole team and everybody out there in May.
Thanks, guys. We appreciate it so much, and always good to chat with you. Appreciate you having me on, and hopefully we'll get to see a lot more of one another in a couple weeks.
Yeah, absolutely, Don. Look forward to it again. A huge thank you. I know it was a little bit of a last minute deal, but thank you for coming on. And yeah, we'll definitely touch base here in a few weeks' time, and all the support from me and Josh to you and the team.
Really appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Don.
Bye for now.
Josh, good stuff there. Like I said, just excited that as Don explained, the passion that he has for motorsports, able to get a partnership with Dreyer and Reinbold, and to be able to fund not one, as he said, but two cars at the 500 this year. And who else better to drive their car? Obviously, Stephen Wilson's injuries. Love to see him back out there. Love to see him get full recovery, and hopefully in 2025, like Don said, to get him a ride. But who better than Noblesville's own Connor Daly to be driving, I believe, the number 24 Dreyer Reinbold Cusack Motorsports entry.
Oh, definitely. I mean, that's a big get for Don. I mean, Connor Daly is a household name in the NTT IndyCar series, and for him to go from having one car to now he's sponsoring two cars in this coming May's festivities is just fantastic. And like he said, he's always looking for that chance to get a full-time ride, full-time program going on, and this may be something that kickstarts that possibility. So I'm looking forward to it. I mean, Connor Daly's he's a great driver, and possibly anyone could end up in victory lane, and that'd be awesome seeing him and Don and the rest of the Dreyer Reinbold crew being standing in victory lane drinking the milk. So we'll see how it goes in May.
Yeah, no doubt there. Indeed, and like I said, the best of luck to Don and to Connor and everyone else that's involved there. But don't forget, prior to the Stephen Wilson crash, which I think was the Monday of the 500, I think, if memory serves me correct, last year, their car was one of the they were towards the top in speed. So don't sleep on this team here just because they're only in the 500 this year, because like I said last year, if Stephen Wilson doesn't crash that car, doesn't get into a wreck the Monday of the week of the 500, they were right up there the top of the speed chart. So don't sleep on Dreyer Reinbold in Cusack Motorsports, excuse me. If you look down at the bottom of your screen, you see that little scroll right there. If you would go follow the show on there you go, right there, Facebook, Twitter, X, if that's what you call it, and you see all of our individual Twitter handles there as well. I know Josh is an avid tweeter. Okay, maybe not, but there's a new name that everybody may be scratching their heads about. We do have a new co-host. I'll be joining us. He is actually in a meeting this evening, and I can't go into any more detail right now. But at the appropriate time and date, that gentleman will go into further detail. But when schedules allow, and hopefully it should be next week, I got that message from him earlier in the day. But our new co-host that we are excited over the moon about is former IndyCar driver Devlin Defranceco. Yes, Devlin Defranceco is going to be joining us on a weekly basis when his schedule allows. Josh, can't wait to have Devlin be able to join us because the insight that RC brought last year obviously was so valuable and so knowledgeable, and I think Devlin is definitely going to be on that same level.
Oh, I'm so excited to have Devlin coming on, and I'll admit, I mean, I'm not too up with Devlin Defranceco when I first heard he was going to become one of our co-hosts, but I've been studying up on him, and I will probably amaze him with some of the stuff that I know about him. So I'll hold that off until he comes on with all the trivia that I have about him. But to have an actual real life driver, me and you can talk about the aspects of how we see stuff on the track and what we think. But this man, just like RC, he's going to be able to tell us the ins and outs of racing in this series and what it's like, driving at 200 plus miles an hour, wheel to wheel, within inches of each other, and give us the strategies that each driver may be employing on different courses, and just basically what it's like to be a full-time driver on the NTT series, and what it's how can I say? What are the trials and tribulations? What are some of the positives? What are some of the negatives? So, very excited to hear that when I heard that we were getting him as a co-host, and maybe he'll help bump up some of our viewerships, and we can start making this as a rocket ship to the moon, as Derik Josh and Jake Query used to have.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, Devlin will be joining us next week. But before we get into all that, I know at the bottom half of the hour, radio anchor on IndyCar radio, voice of not only the 500 but IndyCar in general, and Mark Jaynes will be joining us. Prevalent with Monrovia Sports too, as well. I know that's the connection that you and Mark have. So he'll be joining us here at the bottom half of the hour to discuss all things IndyCar so far. But we do have a couple topics that I think we want to get into here before Mark does join us. Josh, I think the first one is there has been so much testing out at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We've had such a lull in the schedule between Long Beach Thermal Club and then coming up, not Long Beach, but St. Petersburg. There we go. St. Petersburg Thermal Club, and then coming up in I think 2 weeks or a week, Long Beach. So we've had plenty of testing. I know IndyCar also was testing the new hybrid car that I do believe they're going to introduce at Mid-Ohio. If memory serves me correctly, I'll have Mark fact check that. But also testing tomorrow at the Indianapolis Oval, Josh. So, knowing that there's testing tomorrow at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, that both tells us that the 500 and all the pageantry that comes with that is just around the corner. But before we get to that, like I said, IndyCar testing the new hybrid machines. Are you a fan of hybrid cars? And are you curious to see how these are going to look on the track? I know one difference so far, in hat tip Tony Donahue, which he's been on the show numerous times, pointed out on Twitter or X, is that you think about the way the IndyCar is started now, where they have that starter in the back. Well, apparently in the hybrid cars, the starter is inside the cockpit. So that is definitely one difference. To me, the motor still sounds the same. It still sounds the same as as you go through the gears. But the only hybrid cars that I'm familiar with is what you see on the interstate on 465. But Josh, are you a fan of IndyCar going to the hybrid car as soon as the second half of this season?
It'll be interesting. I mean, I take it when you say hybrid, it's going to be part energy, part electric, part gasoline. Still correct?
That is correct.
Well, that brings up some interesting factoids that you or questions you could ask about. One, if you're at what I've driven some hybrids, but mainly it was, when you're at a stop, the engine pretty much shuts off and then it starts going again. At what speed will the cars switch to electric, and what speed will it switch to gas? There's is there a possibility of being able to plug it in for a quick second while you're fueling up or while you're changing tires to fuel up those batteries so that when it switches over to electric that the batteries don't die? I mean, I guess I've never thought about an Indy car, let alone any sort of race car, other than maybe a go-kart that could be powered by a battery. I've never really thought of it. How much do the batteries weigh that are going to be put into these cars? Is it going to how much heavier are they going to be? I know if you're going half fuel and half battery, maybe the tanks are smaller, therefore it offsets the weight of the battery putting in there. It'll be interesting to see how this hybrid car works, and as you said, it still sounds the same. They've been able to make it to where it sounds the same, but will it have the same performance? Is the question that I'll have.
Yeah, definitely can't wait to get our eyes on this. Like I said, we weren't there out at IMS when these hybrids were tested, and I have an article from Auto Week that we can go through here. Maybe it'll give us a better understanding, and obviously when Mark comes on here shortly, we can that's something we can discuss here as well. IndyCar hybrid testing, an eye opener. It's a whole new ball of wax. 6 more teams. Development now tops 20,000 miles. It'll be a new world, and one with more buttons to push. The development of the IndyCar Series hybrid engine, which is expected to become racing reality later this season, continued Thursday and Friday with extensive test runs on the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course. 6 IndyCar teams put the new engine through hundreds of laps on the 2.4-mile IMS road course. The hybrid package has been run through more than 20,000 on-track miles during the development and adjustment process. It's definitely a lot of new stuff for all of us as a team to digest and run through, said Ed Carpenter Racing's driver Rinus VeeKay. It is fairly similar. There are a lot. Usually I have a clue about knowing what we're doing, but with all this new, I'm still learning. The new engine will open up the door to more push-to-pass options to allow drivers to perform engine restarts. There will be a new landscape to explore. It's a whole new ball of wax for me, Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing's Graham Rahal said. To understand how do you feel the hybrid regeneration, whether it's automatic regen, braking regen, throttle regen manual, which is interesting because I think everybody will play it a little bit different. It's an element that we're going to have to watch a lot. Roman Grosjean described the hybrid as a complex system. It's going to take a lot from what we could see this morning. There's a lot of options available, and it's up to us to find out. It's quite different. There are a lot of buttons to push, and it's the beginning. Stingray Robb, Josh's favorite driver, by the way, said that restart capabilities add a prominent new element. That's really good to see because you can go long in a braking zone, stall your car, and spin around, which we've seen a lot of it at these road courses. And we've got a way to restart instead of waiting on a safety crew to get to us, he said. Well, if that's the case, then Josh, that'll really cut down on cautions if a car spins out and stalls and it has the ability to refire itself. That's definitely a plus for these new hybrids. The innovation in this series has been good to see. The whole package seems to be doing its job quite well, and I think it's just a testament to the 20,000 plus miles that we've put into the car. The additional weight of the hybrid system has been a matter of discussion, in particular how setups will be impacted. It's very heavy in the back of the car, so the setup is going to have to change a lot, Grosjean said. So that does give us a little bit of insight, I think, Josh, into these new hybrid cars. Obviously, when Mark comes on, he may be able to elaborate a little more. But definitely from what Stingray Robb has said, by testing this car, it seems like it's a great feature to have. If you do, stall your car out or the back end goes out and you spin around, instead before you had to wait on the great members of the MRE safety team to come and, turn you around on that little cart that they have and then fire you back up. Well, with the new hybrid engine, it restarts itself. So that's definitely got to be, I think, a plus for the drivers.
Definitely. Maybe that cuts out a caution. If somebody, maybe they spin out into the gravel or somewhere, they don't have to, and they don't crash. Nothing, no damage is done to the car. They could just fire it back up and get themselves going, and maybe not have to slow the slow the race down and have laps on caution that could be used towards more exciting racing than just cars weaving in and out back and forth. So it is interesting. The new hybrid engines will, like it said, the setups will have to be different because, like I said, it's heavier in the backside now that we found out in that article.
Yeah, it absolutely is. So, more testing I think is probably going to be done. But I do believe, like I said, if memory serves me correctly, and our next guest will be able to correct the fact there, I do believe they're going to be they're going to start rolling them out at Mid Ohio. But we'll see. Josh, I do see that. Our next guest here is here, going to take a few minutes out of his schedule to join us. I know you know this guy really well. If you listen to IndyCar radio like I do, I like watching. I'll watch the TV, but I'll listen to IndyCar radio. Voice so familiar to everyone. Mark Jaynes is joining us. Mark, again, thank you for taking a little bit of time out of your busy schedule. I know, around this layoff, you've had a lot of things going on, but thank you for joining us this evening.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of people you can get to come on and talk about motorsports. The fact that you think enough of me to extend the invitation is something I deeply appreciate. Always happy to visit with you. Thank you very much for all you do to promote motorsports. I hope you're proud of what you're doing, and I'm proud to be associated with it for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, thank you for being able to come on. And I think first, before we get in anything, me and Josh do want to extend a huge congratulations to you for a huge award that you just got here within the last couple days.
Yeah, it was an honor and a privilege. I'll tell you, it's been kind of an arduous journey because last summer my wife and I had traveled overseas to see some of her family in Germany, and we'd just got off the plane in Atlanta. From Stuttgart and getting ready to fly back to Indianapolis. We're sitting having dinner, and I get a phone call from Paul Condry, and Paul is a longtime broadcaster, heads up regional radio sports. They're a tireless promoter of high school and college athletics in northern Indiana, especially. And Paul said, "Well, it's my honor and privilege to welcome you into the latest class of the Indiana Sports Writers and Broadcasters Hall of Fame." He said, "But you can't say anything until next year because the induction ceremony is in April." And so they announced it formally in January after I sat on it for about 4 or 5 months. Told my immediate family, of course, but then had the induction ceremonies on Sunday, and I can't thank Dave First, Vice President of Communications, longtime member of our radio network, but more importantly, a very dear friend. Dave, along with Doug Bowles, the president of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, sponsored the event. The president of IndyCar, Jay Fry, was there. Artie Freeman from the outstanding communications staff was on hand, along with Jake Query and Chris Pollock and Michael Young from our radio network. I also had a number of fellow employees there from Monrovia High School, where I teach communications, my alma mater, and invited a few coaches and teachers who were a big influence on me. And then a couple of friends from my Terre Haute radio days when I started back in 1996. I was at WTHI, which was owned by the Holman George family. And then, of course, my family, my wife and my children and their spouses were there. So it was a special day for sure. Bob Jenkins, Sid Collins, among those in the Sports Writers and Broadcasters Hall of Fame, Jerry Baker and others that have been with our network over the years. And it's pretty elite company, and I'm truly humbled by it. There's no doubt. But thank you for mentioning that. I appreciate it a great deal.
Hey, it's our pleasure, and it sounds like Josh, Mark was standing room only. It sounds like after his entourage came there with him, it was standing room only. But being both of us being former high school football coaches, Mark, just commend you on what you've done at Monrovia with all their athletic programs. You can't put into words what you've meant to Monrovia, and then still teaching there today. It's astonishing in itself.
Yeah, I can't ever pay that place back for the opportunities that it gave me. I spent 5 years at Beech Grove in between my stints at Monrovia. My heart was always there, and I was thankful that I had the opportunity to go back a few years ago and start a communications program. I had two of my former students, forgot to mention them, that were on hand for the event as well on Sunday. And our superintendent at the time that brought me back, Dr. William Roberson, he, along with Brian Lewis, who's our AD, and Mike Springer, our principal, kind of had a vision about our program. And then a year after I got there, Dr. R left and Kirk Freeman came in, Dr. Freeman to take his place, and has just given us tremendous support. The kids have shown a lot of interest in the program. I've got several former Beech Grove students working professionally. One former Monrovia student is doing freelance work in the film industry in Nashville. And, 7 former students are enrolled in communications programs, the lion's share of them in various forms at Ball State University. And so we're happy to be able to, pay back a school and a community that has meant so much to our family. My children are all graduates of Monrovia High School. I am as well. And it's a debt that I don't feel I could ever repay. And it's an honor and a privilege to have an opportunity to do so. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. But Mark, the real reason why we're here, obviously, IndyCar. It seems like it's been forever since we have gotten cars out in the track. Last race we had Thermal Club. We just had Don Cusick on. A big announcement by him and Dreyer Reinbold today that they're going to be having not 1 but 2 entries in the 500. I know we've had 1 full race, 1 exhibition / all-star race, but so far, what are your feelings that you're getting in this small sample size of the 2024 season?
Well, I mean, it's a little hard to put a finger on the direction that you feel like it's going to go, but I think if you had me back on the 3rd week of June, we'll have a pretty good idea because we're going to get a pretty sizable dose of the NTT IndyCar series over that period of time. I mean, we've got testing, weather permitting, over the next couple of days at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And then, we have a weekend of some downtime for us. And then once we get to Long Beach, I think only 1 weekend off between then and the 3rd weekend in June. with all the stuff that goes on with Long Beach and then beautiful Barber Motorsports Park. And then we get the weekend off, and then we have the Grand Prix on the road course at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And then we start preparing for the greatest spectacle in racing, and the dust no sooner settles on that, they pass out the checks and the milk dries up that we head to Detroit and then have a race after that. So, it's difficult to kind of get into a rhythm for us and for the drivers and for the teams. But I think this time off, the next couple of days they have the test, and then whatever time they might have idle after that is going to go away quickly, and it's going to turn into a grind. And I'm not saying that we should have a good idea who the definite championship contenders are by the time we get to the middle of June, but we'll certainly have a good idea who's got it figured out early and who hasn't. Of course, it's two separate seasons almost, as you guys know. It's that way for the manufacturers. It's that way for the teams and the drivers. I mean, talk about points at Long Beach, you'll talk about points at Barber, and you'll talk about points on the road course. You want to build some momentum, and all of that leads to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the 500, when all the talk about points will go away, and then we'll start to refocus on the championship battle once we get to Detroit.
Yeah, I had a feeling that would be a tough question to answer, just for the simple fact, we've had really one full race, and then the exhibition race there at the Thermal Club. But you spoke about testing, and we talked about it before you came on, as obviously, as you said, weather permitting, the next 2 days at IMS. The testing that's going to be done the next couple days, again, if it doesn't get rained out, how much can that really be taken into consideration when the calendar flips to all the festivities that go on in the month of May? Because all of us living in Indiana know that the weather in April is going to be totally different than what we're going to see at the end of May.
Well, you'll feel good about this because Ryan Marine, who's one of our pit reporters, outstanding, talented broadcaster, he's actually going to be covering the practice sessions, and but wanted to know if there are any questions specifically that we wanted asked for use maybe in a couple of weeks when we get to Long Beach and then again at Barber. And that was one of the very questions I had him ask, because there have been times when teams have shown up in April and done very, very well, and things gone very, very well. And then they get to May and they can't find it, with either hand. And there's no reasonable explanation for it. And then there's other teams that maybe didn't feel very good about their test in April, and then show up in May and they're just bad fast as soon as they roll it out of Gasoline Alley. So, I think to get back into the rhythm of running there, and that's a lot of being successful at the Speedway is developing a rhythm on your laps and hitting your marks and things of that nature. So it's a good get reacquainted session for the drivers, but that's the strange thing about that place, and that's the mystique. I make the observation every year when we get to the practice session. We start covering those. I said, for whatever the reason, that place has a tendency, and I agree with other drivers that have said this, it seems to have a life of its own from the standpoint that it'll pick somebody for the good and pick somebody for the not so good, and there's no reasonable explanation as to why that is. We've seen over the past 4 or 5 years some of the most accomplished drivers in the world, like Fernando Alonso and Will Power, and most recently Graham Rahal, for whatever the reason, struggle just to make the race. And yet there are others that come in and it's their first ever effort, like, an R.C. Anderson and the spectacular job that crew did. I mean, so, that's part of the mystique, part of the tapestry that makes the place so great. And I know it's a lot more enjoyable for us and a lot more compelling for us to watch it unfold than it is for the drivers to have to experience it. There's no question.
Yeah, definitely. I can't agree more, and I am, super excited for the calendar to turn, over to the month of May. That's got to be maybe the best month of the year for someone that lives in Indiana, and someone that has such a deep passion for racing as all of us do. And I'm excited to see, how Kyle Larson is going to adapt. only having the seat time that he has. And then I know we got announcement today that Catherine Legg is going to be joining the field again, so that's going to be interesting. And as was bump days, what we had last year with the ups and downs of what Graham Rahal had to go through. So
yeah, for sure. And
it's something to look forward to, exciting. And the last question that I have, Mark, before I turn it over to Josh Hall, so many Indianapolis 500s, and I think I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Does it ever get old, or is it just something new every year that you've had the opportunity to call it?
Well, I made a promise to myself, and Bob Jenkins and I talked a lot. I didn't necessarily talk much to Bob about structural things. I just talked to Bob about emotions and mindset and things of that nature. And I think if I ever get to the point to where I don't look forward to going and I don't look forward to being a part of it, I think then it will be time to turn that responsibility over to someone else. I'm a long way from that. I mean, as you guys know, I do a lot of high school sports. And once upon a time, I looked for any and every. I mean, one year, years ago in Terre Haute, I did 33 games in 27 days, just because I wanted to do it and I wanted to wear it. I don't do that anymore, mainly because A, I don't have to, but B, I'm getting too old. And my thing is, it's not necessarily the play-by-play itself, as you guys know. It's the prep work that is difficult. I mean, I still do football state championships for the IHSAA. I do one game on television for each day. And on Wednesday, leading into that Thanksgiving weekend, I'll sit down at the computer with all of my notes and stuff, and it'll take me probably in the neighborhood of 6.5 to 7 hours to prepare. That's the kind of stuff that I don't really want to do for those broadcasts anymore. So I don't do as many of those as I used to do. But I've already started working on the pre-race show for the Indy 500, and I'm excited each and every year to be challenged to try to find a theme to open the show with and a way to open the show. And so as long as that enthusiasm is still there, and as long as I can drive by that place throughout the course of the year as I do and feel about it as I do, I'll continue to do it. But no, this will be my 29th 500 with the IMS radio network. And I don't think I have 29 more in me, but I have a few more for sure.
Good stuff, Mark. And now I'm going to turn it over to someone I know you've spoken with before. Josh, what do you have?
Thanks for coming on once again, Mark.
Sure.
Always a pleasure to have you on, and once again, congratulations on the Hall of Fame.
Thank you.
That's a well-deserved thing that you've worked your entire career for, and it's awesome that you were able to be inducted. Can you give us some details on any details that you have on this new hybrid car? Is it like when I think of hybrid, I think of what we have like a Prius or a something that does gas and electric at the same time. How is that going to balance out in an Indy car? On like your street cars, you have at a certain speed the electric takes over, at a certain speed the gas takes over. Is that kind of what this is going to be?
Well, I'll tell you, I stay in my lane when it comes to our broadcast, and that would be a conversation for Davey Hamilton. I mean, I let him handle the technical side of things and the fuel mileage and pit strategy and the engineering side of it, just like I did with Anders Krohn and Zach Veach and Pippa Mann, because that's what they know. I can tell you this: in a couple of crew chiefs and team principals that I have talked to about the development of the hybrid. A couple of things. Last fall, they were all scratching their head thinking there was no way in the world that this thing was going to happen. And, everyone got together, put their heads together, and made dramatic improvements and dramatic changes in it. I know the plan was to unveil it at St. Pete. That did not happen. And so they hope that comes later on in the year, most likely at Mid-Ohio. So I think you guys said before you had me on. But I know that the testing of late has gone well. And I think the thing that cannot be overstated is the level of cooperation that has existed in the development of this thing between IndyCar and the powers that be at Honda and Chevy. Those guys like nothing more than beating one another for the Indy 500 and beating one another for the championship. But it's been a collaborative effort between all of those parties to make this happen. And I think it's timely because, quite frankly, it's the direction that we are going as a society. And I have every reason to believe that there are going to be growing pains with it, as there often is. I mean, look at all the growing pains we've had with the aero screen. And now it's as though we've always had them. And so with other developments too. And I think this will be just like that. And I think the series does a really good job of introducing something and then massaging it and getting it to the point to where within a relatively short amount of time, you don't ever remember a time when it didn't exist. But I think all the drivers are excited about it. It's going to offer a lot more response and I think a lot more speed, as I understand it. But in terms of the specifics of it and the technology and everything, that I went to Monrovia High School. I'm not, I'm well versed in that regard. So I don't want to say anything and say the wrong thing, but suffice it to say that as the development moves along, we'll continue to stay on top of it and give people as much insight as we have available to us.
Okay, well, let's pivot away from that. You were talking about talk to you come mid-June about how the NTT is going to look and the standings are going to look. My question to you is, why is it? It seems like it's been so long since we've had a race. Why does IndyCar feel that they have to have such wide gaps between at the beginning of the season? I know it starts to become more intensified come May. You start having more and more, or here in a couple weeks in the car, but it just seems like we haven't had a points race in almost seems like maybe a month and a half, and then we had what that spectacular thing that they had out at the Thermal Club. It just seems like IndyCar is missing out on you start the season and it's a fantastic race, and it's like, okay, now you're not going to really see our drivers in a points race for almost a month and a half, 2 months.
Well, I think that I think St. Pete has earned the right to land where it lands on the schedule. I think Green Savoree Promotions and the city of St. Petersburg have been a tremendous partner with the NTT IndyCar Series. And I think that lands on a date that makes a lot of sense. The issue becomes as you build your schedule, obviously there's a television partner that has some say-so and as to the who, what, when, where, why, and how is scheduling. That's just the reality of it. That's why we were up until midnight last night watching the NCAA championship. But two, it becomes a venue issue too. I mean, I know that a lot of people are disappointed that the series isn't going back to Texas this year. I don't know that necessarily was an IndyCar issue, and hopefully that the relationship will continue. Obviously, there's still a relationship there because some testing happens there. I think a lot of folks want to get back to Texas because of its history and tradition on the schedule. So the nearest I could glean in having conversations with the people on the quote unquote inside, there's just a lot of layers to the onion, if you will, and the scheduling is very, very difficult. And I don't think there's any question that nobody in the series is happy with the gap that there is, and efforts are made each and every year to massage that schedule. I mean, you want date equity, but as we've learned, sometimes that's not always as important as it used to be. It's certainly not that case in other forms of motorsports that have moved, fairly significant dates around, have still found a way to make them successful. This year is a bit of an anomaly because, from the series perspective, I think they had every intentions of going back to Texas, but then NASCAR changed the schedule and moved that Texas date from September and took it out of the playoffs and moved it back to the spring. And it made it difficult for them to come up with the personnel to run events, fairly close together. And since that's an SMI track and that's essentially a NASCAR track, that's the decision they made and the direction they wanted to go. And that was unfortunate for IndyCar and unfortunate for the fans in that region. But again, hopefully that relationship can get rebuilt. And again, NBC throws all of their resources at the Olympics, so we'll have another big gap in July. That'll give everybody a chance to hit the reset button before we finish the season strong. So I don't know that there's anything more challenging for Roger Penske and Bud Dinker and Mark Miles and Jay Fry and all of their crew. There's nothing more challenging to them than scheduling, and they face a lot of challenges, and it's something that they're aware of. But what you want to do and the reality of what you're able to do oftentimes are two vastly different things. And I have all the faith in the world that they will continue to address these gaps in the schedule and try to find ways to close those gaps a little bit and find venues. But again, they have to have a willing partner too. There's got to be, not everybody has a Hy-Vee at their disposal, like the folks at Iowa do, and now at Milwaukee. Not everyone has, Acura, like coming up at Long Beach and Firestone and Honda. Not every track out there has enough resources to allocate to other race weekends. But the series is always looking for capable partners and willing partners, and I have every reason to believe that will continue moving forward. But I am personally, I'm willing to sacrifice a bit of a gap in the schedule if it means that we continue to race on the weekend we do to open the season at St. Pete, because I think those people have earned that, and I would never want to see us open the season anywhere else unless, of course, it made a hell of a lot of sense to do so.
Definitely. Great answer. Well, that's all I have. And once again, thank you for coming on, and congratulations on the Hall of Fame. And maybe hopefully Derik can get you on. We can talk more leading up to the race in May.
Well, and I'll bend Davey's ear about this hybrid. And Kyle Boyer, the general manager of Penske Racing, is a classmate of mine, and I'll get Kyle to talk slow enough to where I can even understand it. And hopefully, I'll have some more interesting, more compelling answers for you guys about the hybrid when we get together the next time.
Mark, good stuff as always. Like I said, thank you for taking a little bit of time out of your schedule to join us. And again, congratulations on all of your awards and accomplishments. And I'm sure you're going to be getting more here as your career continues. And I'm sure we'll talk maybe during the month of May, and look forward to Long Beach in about a couple weeks.
Well, if you guys, once we get out there in May and we start rolling, you guys, you know how to get a hold of me. I'd love to have you come up the booth and take a look at how we do things from the Sid Collins broadcast booth there at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Love for you guys to come up, spend some time with us, and promote what you do.
Absolutely. And, it's interesting. Quick note before you bring that up. The first time I laid my eyes on that radio booth, I put that on my Mount Rushmore of things to get done. So thank you for extending that opportunity. And like I said, we'll connect during the month of May.
All right, guys, take care. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yep.
Josh, every time we get the opportunity to have Mark on, what a diamond, what a gem that IndyCar Radio has. With Mark, all of his knowledge, obviously, in racing and the passion that he has for it, and then also too, doing football, doing play-by-play for high school sports. I know that's something that we've talked about, maybe getting into this fall. But what a gem that IndyCar Radio has, IHSAA network has with Mark Jaynes.
Oh yeah, definitely. That entire crew. I mean, everyone that we've talked to, from Michael Young that we just talked to a couple weeks ago. We've talked to Jake Query on occasion or two, and I mean they're all just so knowledgeable and they're so passionate. I mean, every time you hear anyone talking about IndyCar that's associated with the radio broadcast or the on-air broadcast, the over the TV broadcast. Every time you see one, you hear or listen to one and talk to, they're just so passionate and so knowledgeable about it. And it's amazing. The amount, I mean, like Mark said, spending 6, 7 hours, getting a pre-race show together is just amazing. In the way that with how they're dedicated to their craft. And that's one reason that Mark went into the Hall of Fame this past weekend, his dedication and his preparation for his shows and different broadcasts that he does. So it's amazing.
Yeah, no doubt that Mark has gotten his career or has yet to get definitely are deservable to say the least. But we got a couple things left to cover, Josh, before we drop the checkered flag on the show. We do need to get to our sponsors, who always make it possible for us to bring you all of this exciting news, guests, interviews, things of that here on the Push to Pass podcast. First and foremost, Always Ready 1776 for any patriotic apparel, headwear, and more. Go check out the guys over at Always Ready 1776, or you can go check them out on the web at alwaysready1776.com. And if you do find something that you'd like to purchase, make sure you use that promo code that you see up there on your screen, Push to Pass, for 10% off of your order. Also, too, I'd like to thank Gettum Associates Incorporated. If you have any home design, build, or remodeling needs, if you're in the market for that, remember it's Gettum Associates. You can find them on the internet as well at gettum.com. And if you do choose to go with a home design or remodel, make sure you mention Push to Pass, as it says right down there in the promo code, for $250 off any design service from Gettum Associates. So a huge thank you both to Always Ready 1776 and Gettum Associates for their sponsorship here on the Push to Pass podcast. I know we got a couple more news items, Josh, that we want to get to or hit on before we get on out of here. And I know there's one you want to talk about. We've had this discussion back and forth for the last couple days and over the weekend. And I think it's going to be a something special that we can bring to the audience next week when we do it live on air. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, came across a product sponsoring IndyCar. It's me and when I was younger, I was an avid baseball and basketball and football card collector. But there is a company out there that makes an IndyCar collectible cards. They come with autographs and short prints or numbered cards. So I will be picking that product up, picking up a hobby box of that this coming Friday, and we can. I know we're in two different spots, so we'll probably break the box open beforehand. There you go. There's that's it. It is. That's what some of the cards look like. We'll break the box open beforehand, and you'll take half the packs, and I'll take half the packs, and then we'll break them live here on our next show and show you what we get. They look fantastic. Some of the graphics are awesome, and the best thing I like about them is I'm always a big fan of on-card autos. I love when a driver or a sports star has touched that card of some sort, even if it's for a quick second. But a lot of the sports cards, memorabilia stuff has gone to sticker autos. But IndyCar is, as far as I know, all of them are on-card autos. So, I believe in the hobby box, you're guaranteed at least 2 autos per box. So that'll be fun. We'll be doing that next week on our show, probably more towards the end of the show. I don't know. Maybe we'll see how we format it. But that is going to be something fun. And I've never done a live break online, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, definitely excited to do this. The the company, I think it's Parkside Collectibles, I believe, is the card company that went in with the NTT IndyCar series and just started making those trading cards. And I do know, just by watching another IndyCar journalist, and he did a sort of the same thing we were talking about. All of the signed cards that are actually signed, they're not just stickers, as Josh was explaining, were all signed at the IndyCar content days back in the beginning of January. So excited about that. Can't wait to get our hands on those. And I believe I think if you're in Indianapolis, was it the Indy Card Exchange, I think, is where we were talking about, up on the 96th Street. I do believe that's the address. That's where we're going to go and pick up that hobby box there on Friday. So definitely excited for that. So can't wait to do that next Tuesday. That's something I've never done, a breaking of a box, I guess is what it's called, live either. So definitely something we're going to both enjoy. But before we get to that, I know we do have, Josh, a couple news items to get to here. So the first one, if I can do this correctly, there it is. A little cool graphic right there. But anywho, we talked about this a little bit ago, but another driver that is able to or try to make another attempt to get into the 500 coming up in May. It was announced today that Catherine Legg will attempt to qualify for the 108th Indianapolis 500 presented by Gamebridge in a Honda-powered entry fielded by Dale Coyne Racing. So that was just announced today, and the primary sponsorship, Josh, on that car is cosmetic products. I don't know if you're familiar with the brand, because I'm definitely not. Beauty brand ELF, or ELF, and the what that means, eyes, lips, and face, is what ELF stands for. So I guess we just learned something new today. And Josh, I don't know what you think, but this car, I think it's an awful sharp looking entry. But do you think the same?
It is. It's a very interesting car. The Liberty looks awesome. I can't wait to see what the finished product looks like. And I'm all for more drivers trying to qualify for the 500. Makes bump day a little bit more exciting, rather than just having two people be out there for bump day. You have more than one fighting to get into the field. And we had the drama last year of Graham Rahal not being able to. Was it Graham? It was Graham, right? Yes, Graham Rahal. Sorry, I get confused sometimes. Not being able to make the field. I mean, he eventually made the field through some unfortunate circumstances, but all drivers, I like having the race a lot, having as many drivers as you can, trying to make the field. It just makes it goes back. It's a throwback to the old days when you had people that just you race what you brought, and if you made it, you made it. If you didn't, you didn't. So I'm excited for Catherine, and anytime we can get a female driver in there, to join the ranks of past female drivers, Sarah Fisher and Danica Patrick, and any of the other illustrious ladies that are able to get out there and qualify for this race. So it's gonna be fun. I'll be rooting for her, just on the fact that that car looks so nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely love to see the women behind the wheel there, and I definitely think we need more in IndyCar, and maybe this will set a trend for that to happen. But speaking of new players coming to IndyCar, with our last bit of news, it was announced today as well that Prima Racing is going to be joining the NTT IndyCar Series in 2025. Prima Racing will expand into the NTT IndyCar Series in 2025, team officials announced today. A trailblazing operation and one of the most successful in history of single-seat racing, Prima will make the jump to North America's premier open-wheel championship next year, fielding 2 full-time entries in partnership with Chevrolet and making an historic debut in the greatest spectacle in racing, the iconic Indianapolis 500 presented by Gamebridge. Today's announcement marks a pivotal moment in the history of Prima racing, Prima team principal Renee Rosen said. Making the step into the NTT IndyCar series and competing at the world-famous Indianapolis 500 is a dream coming true for our family and everyone involved in our business. We have tremendous respect for IndyCar and its unique challenges and sensational history, and we look forward to being a part of it. So, Josh, I know you made the comment earlier today when this story broke that this is great news for IndyCar because you have another team that's going to unknown because obviously this will be the 2025 will be their first year in IndyCar, so you don't know what to expect, but nonetheless, good day for IndyCar. Adding a team in 2025, and then Catherine Legg and also Dreyer Reinbold with Cusack Motorsports being able to be a part of the Indianapolis 500 this coming May as well.
Definitely. Like I was saying to you earlier, it's an awesome thing getting another team in there. Competition breeds success. If it's just the same old teams, year after year, it I don't want to say it becomes stale, but you introduce some new blood into the water, and you get those you get those big sharks swimming around, and you never know what could happen. A couple of years ago, Arrow McLaren wasn't even in. 20 years ago, Arrow McLaren wasn't in NTT IndyCar, but now they are, and they're making splashes and making waves, and I wholeheartedly can't wait to see how Prima can come in, and it also gives more cars, and that allows for more drivers. You have talented drivers out there that this is a competitive sport, and it gives 2 more seats for drivers that may be looking for rides that just can't seem to get in with those other groups that now they can they have somewhere else they can go and try to compete also. So it's going to be a good thing. Interesting to see. I know when I read their bio, they sponsored a former Indy 500 winner one time back in, I want to say it was 95 or 96, maybe back then. But good to hear them coming over, and we'll see how it works out.
Yeah, definitely can't wait to see that team debut in 2025. But before we get to that, obviously we got plenty of business to settle here in the 2024 season, which will pick back up, I think, towards the end of the month. I believe the last weekend in April. I do, if memory serves me correctly, at Long Beach. So definitely can't wait for that. But Josh, I think that does it for another episode of the Push to Pass podcast. Great show. I think we can agree on that. Also, we want to say huge thank yous to Don Cusick of Cusack Motorsports for joining us. Also, huge thank you to Mark Jaynes from IndyCar Radio for taking time out of his schedule to join us as well. And as always, remember to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, to all the social media outlets, as well. As you see, as Josh pointed out earlier, they're down there at the bottom of the page. Definitely check those out. Content is being put on there daily. So for myself, Josh, and Devlin, who will make his debut here next week on the podcast, we want to say so long, and we will come back with you 1 week's time to talk more IndyCar racing. So until then, so long, everybody.